unmuted. Um, Hi, can you hear me now?
Yes.
All right. So I guess it's mostly good afternoon, good evening, and hello. I don't know how many people from the US on the morning side of the world are, but good morning in case there are. It's good to be here, and thank you, Vibor and Luisa, for the invitation and the opportunity to talk about licensing. Vio, if you want to just say hello as well.
Hi everyone, I'm Viorela. I'm a product manager at licensing, so I will cover mostly the technical part of this topic. And it's nice to be here with all of you.
All right, so okay, so this was the first slide. So Vio, you already introduced yourself. So my name is Andy Roth. I work in the strategy office. And one of the things that I started covering is also our licensing and up to a point even our pricing strategy. Um, Vibor asked us to actually join, as you know, there's a lot of questions about licensing, and like you mentioned, there's sometimes it helps to gain some clarity talking to us. So that's the goal. Before we actually go into the content, a few things that I want to mention. First of all, and I've seen this in many of your questions, but unfortunately, with the risk of disappointing you, we will not talk about the pricing itself. That's a discussion that happens through our sales avenues. If you work with enterprises that already work with UiPath or want to engage with your sales reps, engage with the partners maybe you work with. If you don't, do let us know. Do let Vibor, Luisa. Definitely, we will get you in touch. So if you have some questions on the pricing side, please follow the sales channels that we have. The presentation was built with the community user. We are aware that the community user is not like a homogeneous audience of people. Everybody having downloaded our community or signed up for our community offering, and everybody's playing with it at home. You guys work with some of our partners and some of our customers. You might be experimenting with UiPath. You might be using our academy to learn about UiPath, so you want to understand more. So we're very happy to have you here. We will, because of we are acknowledge the diversity in backgrounds, we will do our best to address even non-community specific questions within the limits we mentioned above. So we will not engage in the pricing. Also, this is now, and please do it now. Bookmark these pages. It's easy to remember. Licensing.uipath.com. This is where you have details about actually what our commercial offering looks like, on what are some of the guidelines about using our technologies, what are the detailed levels. So we'll try to get into as much as possible. Sometimes if you go into very technical questions, we might even not know, because there's a lot of stuff. The second URL is docs.uipath.com, and this is actually where you have the bulk of the documentation. This is where you have everything about our products, from technical requirements, hardware prerequisites, how to installation guides, everything. So do use reference these, bookmark them on your machines. Make sure every time you have a question, try them. I know on the forum side you are probably there, so the forum is your first go-to, but this is where you have information. Even the forum, like I'm monitoring it every once in a while. Usually if you go to a forum, somebody will come back with an URL to one of these two resources. So do bookmark them. If you have time, also run over. This is as an introduction. So let's very quickly, and with the risk of boring you, this is our whole automation lifecycle and our product suite, right? In the context of the hyper automation, and our product suite is the first hyper automation ready, as we call it, offering. And what does hyper automation actually mean? It's a term like made famous, if you will, by Gartner last year, where they're talking about so it's extending beyond automation. Whether they call it hyper automation, some analysts call it intelligent automation, but it's spanning from beyond the three core components, which even UiPath started with, which were these three in the middle for the build, manage, and run. So the build, which is, we'll go into it, but it's also encompassing the discover part. So it's actually about discovering automation opportunities. And for here, there's two, and you'll see this in as we talk about our product suite. We rely on both the people in the enterprise to discover them, and also on technology, on AI, to be able to really understand where the opportunity for automation is in the enterprise. And then the other new parts are the engagement part. And you'll see we have the UiPath Assistant. If you already have it, you know it. The Action Center. We're actually in chatbots. We have chatbots, and then obviously the last part is measure. So there and if you see in the colored boxes, you actually see products. Our product range split on these different stages of the automation lifecycle. Now let's go actually into the licensing, right? The licensing tenets are three major tenets that we seek when we actually built this model, right? We want our licensing to be simple, and it's very hard to have a simple licensing. And with this, even to Vibor's point about sometimes confusion, we understand it, but we're trying to make it simple in the context where our product range has increased fivefold in the last 12 to 18 months. So we are trying to make it as simple as possible within that expansion, and within even not only the product, but also the scope of automation, as you've seen on the slide before. So again, we're trying to make it simple. We're trying to really make it easy to match, right, the capabilities with user roles, and you'll see we'll get to those. The other tenet is scale, right? And this is, we are the leading RPA vendor in the world. We talk to our customers all the time. We listen to them, and we engage with them to understand, what their needs are. So we're looking at scaling, because this is really important for an enterprise to reap the benefits of automation. Scaling is crucial. And then the other part is obviously the economic part. So savings. Our pricing, where practical, is also designed to provide savings for our customers. It's very important we look at this, and you'll also understand. So feel free to ask questions, where you see, but it's really important that we also have an economic, in the end, enterprises look for ROIs, and we have to provide that. Just 1 second. Okay. I was seeing myself too much. In terms of the platform elements, so we've seen, on the automation lifecycle, what they look out. In terms of how we actually structure our elements, they go around 4 different categories. The first one is the user's roles. I see a lot of, there's questions popping up. I will look at them. But yeah, and Vibor, I don't know if you mentioned this, by the way. After the presentation, so we'll have a Q&A session where you can actually unmute yourself, and
Yes.
you can ask questions. So please wait for them, be mindful, and then once we finish this, we provided ample of time, so we hopefully can cover most questions. Going back, so we have the users and roles, and this is where we have our user-based products, and this is where actually our whether it's the analysts or the developers, we created roles where we provide in a bundle or in packages all the elements for the particular types of roles. We'll get into that. Then the robots, and this is where we talk about the unattended robots, the AI robots. Then we have the management and governance, and maybe I can go here on the product map. And this gives you an idea of which of our main components falls into which category, right? So studio attended robot falls as a user roles. The unattended robots are in the robot section. Management and governance covers orchestrator, but also covers insights, covers automation hub. We'll get into there. And then the last part is services and support, which it looks at. We won't get into this because it's mostly of our enterprise customers, but these are the four, let's just say, main categories. So this is in one image, pretty much at this point, our product offering, our commercial offering here, right? The user roles will actually try to go a little bit through each of these just to show what they include. But the users roles will range from action center users, and we'll explain that's the user that's involved in automation without actually running it, and then all the way down to specialized. You can see here the roles, right? So just one second. The RPA developer is the process developer. Robots, where we have I was mentioning the unattended robot, the AI robots, and the AI Robot Pro, which are part of our AI fabric. Then we have the test robot and the document understanding. Management and governance, I was mentioning its orchestrator, its insights, automation hub, and our process mining. And then on the support, we have several offerings here, like our premium care, our premium plus, which are support. We have professional services, we have training, and we have our academy. Now, this animation, I made it go fast because I don't want to spend, but initially, if you've seen the first two, these were we were covering two types of users up to about a year ago: the business users and the RPA developers. Now, with the expansion, we can actually cover various types of roles throughout the enterprise. We have obviously the business users. We have the citizen developers. So this is our Studio X offering. We have specialized developers, and you'll see in a second what those entail. We have process users, and this deals with our process mining capabilities, and then quality testers, which deal with our test suite, what we launched actually last year. Now, I know this is a very heavy slide because there's a lot of information here, but this, if you will, is the entire image of somebody raised their hand, but again, Lalwani, I think I'll just ask you to wait until we'll come back to this if you want. So the commercial licensing, these are the types of users. We have the business users, and here we actually have three types of business users. We have the task mining users, and this is actually the people who actually where the task mining recorder is deployed. The action center user I was mentioning, actually, this is actually the employees engaged in automation where they provide input into unattended automation, but they don't need their own robot, so they just provide an input. And then the attended user, which are the business users that will run automations, attended automations, but they're not developing them. So they have a robot, an attended robot, they run it as needed, but they don't actually go and develop and edit these. The citizen developer, this is our Studio X. That's our Studio X offering on top of the attended user. So if you see here, there's several boxes, and so each of these roles, and this goes back to the idea of providing value. So in one of these roles, we include every tool that role would need. It's not only about the Studio X, the IDE, the no-code IDE that we have, but also the attended robot that's needed, an action center license, and also the task capture, and we'll go that. The RPA developers, now here we actually have a split in two. We have our standard RPA, which is everything an RPA developer needs to build automations for the enterprise, right? We have the Studio, which also features the Studio X, and we'll go into more detail. But this is, and if you see on the bottom, it actually gives what type of users are. So these are the COE type of RPA developers who are developing automations on an ongoing basis. And then we have the RPA Developer Pro, which actually is what we call here it says an advanced COE type. But what this actually offers access to our test test workflows and everything needed to running test automations. We have the specialized developer I was mentioning. This is new. So we have the process mining developer and the test developer pro. The difference between these two, one is catered for the process mining developer, people focused on actually on process mining, and the test developer is obviously for our test suite. The process users we have, and these are the pretty much the business user for process mining. These people actually have the information for the process mining, who will actually maybe try to understand it and run the analysis on them. And quality tester, again, these are the testers, have access to the test management platform. They will not they will not develop the test automations, but they have access to them to run them. Now, one thing that's important in here, and between these, all of these roles, they're actually licensed on the named user. And I know there were quite a few questions about, we used to have a different types of licensing model, but it's evolved, and it's evolved for many reasons, and we can delve into that if you have a question. But these are named users. What does it mean? So practically when, for example, an RPA developer named user license will actually allow one named you, and it's very important, one individual, if you will, and the reference here is usually to whether it's an AD user or something in your enterprise, access to all of these tools. That's the named user. And we have the multi-user availability for some of them. I have a slide about that as well, because I've seen many questions in the prep. So this is in a nutshell, and I'm happy to come back to it if you have some questions. But all right, let's delve into the user roles, right? The first one, as I was mentioning, the Action Center user. One note, I haven't added the task mining user that we have in there, because that's actually going to be GA at the end of this year. So it's not yet GA, hence I didn't want to put it here, because it's also not going to be available for our community offering. But the Action Center user, this is also, as I was saying, this is actually how to engage our unattended robots within the business operations. So if you will, to use a metaphor, this is actually robots and people working together. This is particularly helpful when unattended automations need some decisions, when there's some validation needed. So this is where the unattended robot will actually assign tasks to these users based on various rules, and then it requires input. Okay, the attended user license. So this is, I was mentioning, this is actually the users that need access. They have an attended robot, they need to be able to run it, but they don't actually edit it. So they have their attended robot, they will run, they will have a suite of automations they need to run, but they will not edit them. The citizen developer license. So this is the added capability is the access to StudioX. This is our no-code designer. This, I would say, this citizen developer is really much, really a core part of our, a robot for employee mantra, where we democratize automation. So it's, and we'll talk about this maybe with the Automation Hub. One of the tenets of automation and scaling is actually having not only a top-down automation strategy where the COE will come up, but also enabling employees to automate their own work. And citizen developer is the tool that allows people with, without a programming background to actually design their own automations. The RPA developer license, this is our standard offering from the beginning, where you actually have access to our studio, the full-fledged automation designer, and then everything that comes with it. We also have access to StudioX, so if you want to switch to a business user profile quickly for a rapid automation, that user can do it. Obviously, they also have their attended robot, and then the Action Center and the Task Capture. So Task Capture, if you see, actually comes with included in all of our user profiles here. Now, RPA Developer Pro. So this is, as I was mentioning, this actually adds the test automation development features to our studio. So it does offer the absolute complete power of our development platform, right? And then the robot, as again, it's a dedicated robot to support the efficiency. The process mining developer license, this is again targeted for our specialized developers. It's those users, the developers that are looking at backend systems or up data to uncover the automation opportunities. So beside access to the UiPath Studio for the application development, for the robot, the action center, they actually have license for the process mining tool, so they can design, develop, and customize platform applications on our process mining solution. The Test Developer Pro. Now this actually gives you, it's like the RPA Developer Pro. So in terms of it gives you access to Studio Pro and all those other tools, but also gives access to the tester user. So this is the developer that manages the test cases, and then they can also develop, edit them, and everything. The process mining business user. This is the user that actually looks at the data, doesn't really need to edit it, but they have access to the process mining. So they can provide insights, they can monitor KPIs. This is the analyst, if you will, right? The business user for the process mining. And then the tester user license, this is the user that manages the test cases and automates the tasks, right, across environments. So they have access to the test manager and the task capture. A quick note about the multi-user. I'm trying to stick to the multi-user. Right, this is the named user concept, right? Every user has a dedicated license, and it's always there when they need it. But, and this is, we are aware that some of our customers, in some cases, this is not ideal. In call centers where people work in multiple shifts, with heavy usage, they need something that gives them more flexibility, and obviously, even economically. So for that, we have the multi-user option, and again, it's reserved for special use cases where we definitely, what we're trying to avoid here is we avoid queuing for licenses, and we've seen this with our customers as we were talking to them. Many times they would have what we had the concurrent licenses, and then the developers would actually have to queue for licenses. They would not have access to one as they need them. So we're trying to avoid this, right? And this is where, like I was mentioning, the shifts model or the contact centers, that's where the kind of special use case where this is the one place where we actually have a reference for pricing. These licenses cost 2 times the named user pricing, and they pretty much what they do, they work as giving access to 3 different named users for the same license. That's how it works. And there's a prerequisite to this. There's a multi-user add-on, and the goal of this multi-user add-on is to make sure that this stays only for enterprises that actually have the scale and the use case needed for this. This was on our user roles. Now, the robots, and before we go into this model, I just wanted, many times we have questions, exactly what's the difference between attended and unattended? Because also we know some of our competitors, sometimes they don't really make the distinction. So what, the robots that do work independently, these are the robots that only check in with our users if there's a question or exception. Otherwise, they work independently. They can work 24/7. They're very efficient, high productivity. You can pretty much rely on them to work, and you can move them between machines. You can deploy them anywhere you want. So this is what we call unattended automation. And then the robots that work under the user supervision, where the user actually decides when they stop, they start, they'll wait for the user. This is what we call attended automation. And obviously, many of our enterprise customers do use both, in a hybrid model. These are the SKUs for the robots that we have. Unattended robots, again, this is this is the, you know, I just call it the working horse of our robot offering. And this works, so basic orchestrator and standard orchestrator, and we'll get to that. But we have, so unattended robots, we have AI robots, we have test robots. Again, I think they're self-explanatory, but we can talk more about them. So the AI robots are the ones used actually to train and to run our ML models. So it's really part of our AI fabric. Various ML models, this is what you need to have if you want to run that. Are the test robots, are the tests actually the robots involved in running the test cases? And then document understanding, this is the robot used obviously for document understanding, for data extraction. And document understanding and AI robots actually work hand in hand. If we can get to that, if there's questions particularly about that. One important thing here actually, and we'll get into this, most of these robots also have, they work with orchestrator, or they can also work in our cloud platform. And I'll explain more about that, but the idea is they have a version with the orchestrator, which is with the standard orchestrator. So this is actually what we call an on-prem, with the on-prem deployment, and then we have the cloud, where they're orchestrated through our cloud orchestrator. Now, the last section that I'm going to go deeper into is the management and governance. And these are the products on the left. We have orchestrator, insights, process mining, and automation hub. So what we call the platform capabilities. This table shows you what our offering is, how it works, and whether there's a cloud or not. So we have the orchestrator standard. So again, this is our product managing our automation, the automations in the enterprise. They actually deploy the robots, they stop them, they assign, the orchestrator works as also assigning licensing in the organizations. It's all management, measuring, and everything. There's a basic orchestrator which we have available, but with a very limited use case, with 5 total robots and 5 RPA or variants, this is it also has limitations of what it can do. So we have that, but obviously there's limitations to it. So for very small deployments, it might be an effective tool, but to most of our customers just go for the orchestrator standard or for our cloud offering. We'll get to that in a second. We have a high availability add-on, and this is actually obviously in enterprise settings where there's just, you know, production grade systems where you need to make sure you have high availability. We actually have this add-on which covers the management and the uptime guarantees required. And then we have the process mining server, which is actually where you can run pretty much process mining on various processes throughout the organization. And the automation hub, which is our own tool pretty much on the Discover side. What we call actually, it's the operating system for the center of excellence in a company. This is actually where you collect the automation ideas, where you manage them, you manage the ROI, so that actually you monitor. This is, I call it more the air traffic control for the automations. Now, this is a very quick video. So let me just run it about the automation cloud. Okay. I hope that
Carl had a problem. The big boss, who could be quite demanding, somehow heard that a robot could take care of tedious, repetitive tasks for her. And she wanted one. Right now. Oh dear, thought Carl. If only there was a way to get powerful, secure enterprise automation out of thin air. Luckily, Carl found the UiPath Automation Cloud. In less than a minute, he was ready to give the big boss the robot she wanted, without high upfront costs or security risks, because those were things he knew could make her quite dangerously unhappy. But then, something extraordinary happened. Suddenly, everybody wanted a robot to help them. And you can imagine how much pressure that put on Carl. None at all. The UiPath Automation Cloud. Start instantly, scale infinitely.
All right, so I hope you were able to hear that, because that's a very nice explanation of the automation cloud and its benefits. And here there's actually several of the main features or advantages of it. And actually the first one is really pertinent to this audience, because actually the automation cloud it's free for small business use, for community. So here the big advantage on this offering, as opposed, and we'll get to that, as opposed to our on-prem, is actually it gives you access to an orchestrator tenant. So anybody, if you go now on the UiPath website and you sign up for community, you actually get to our automation cloud offering, because you get your own tenant instantly. You can deploy your robot, the studios, you can measure them, you can actually manage, deploy them, use them. So you have access to pretty much a lot more capability than with a simple on-prem solution. Again, it's instant as a trial, and this is for the maybe organizations that are watching this. Again, if you try it, you get an instant enterprise trial for 60 days, which also gives you support. That's very important for the trial. If you do a trial on our automation cloud, you actually get support with an SLA mentioned there. And obviously, there's the scalability to add unlimited robots and studios. And you can actually build as many tenants as you want. It's a 60-day trial. And then usually, with that, we hope we can convince you to actually go and deploy, let's just say, our platform in production. Again, easy, fast provisioning. It's just 1 minute. It allows you to do user management. It gives you dashboard views. It gives you insights about how your robot fleet is doing. You can actually get automations from dashboards. License management, you can manage your own licenses out of here. And obviously, there's an audit trail. Everything you do is being audited. Right? Being in the cloud, it's easy to actually have the logs of everything. So there's comprehensive logging of robot and the automation actions. I'll end the presentation with our community offering as of now. And this is just so you see what we offer to our community as of right now. I did run through all of our products. The community offering is catered to the use case of the individual user or the SMB. So it gives access to the tools there. Our commitment is we will keep this. For us, the community is critical for our success and for our learning, and for the feedback that we get from community, from the lessons that we get about how you use our technology. It's important. Hence our commitment to always keep this. We were the first to provide community offering, to provide free community learning, so our academy, and our commitment, we will continue to do this, so because it adds a lot of value, and we hope we are committed to continue to deliver value for you. That is pretty much the gist of our presentation. So I think we can go ahead and just 1 second. We can go ahead and ask questions. So Vibor, do we want people to unmute themselves now?
Yeah, they can unmute themselves and ask question. Marella, just in case you saw any good question and you want to address that for the larger audience.
Yeah.
I actually answered, took this time to answer the questions on the chat. What I saw is some confusion that I understand around the named user in terms of our new pricing structure. So for example, an RPA developer, which developer user license, which gives you access to Studio, Studio X, Attended, Action Center and Task Capture, and what it means to have it as named user, for example. And like Andy explained, I hope you paid attention. Like Andy explained, the named user is a specific user. And I also saw some pretty technical or not so technical questions around how do we enforce this for a specific user. This is happening at licensing server side. And for now, as you already know, I assume, our products only work on Windows. So we enforce it based on the Windows username for now. And that means that the machine name doesn't matter anymore. You can be on 10 machines with the same username and use the same license, not in the same time, of course. You cannot be in 10 places in the same time, but sequentially it will work. And what I want to make clear is that in these bundles or group of products, whatever you want to call them, RPA developer, for example, you have 5 or 6 products that you have access to, but only one username can have access to all of those. You cannot, for example, if you buy one RPA developer user license, you cannot have user 1 on Studio and user 2 on Action Center, for example. It has to be only one user. Pretty much this is what I've seen. And of course, if a user leaves the company, for example, user 1 leaves the company, you can unassign and deactivate the license on user 1 and reactivate it on user 2. So this is mostly what I would see. I've seen quite some interest in Action Center licenses. Yeah. And I've mostly answered on the chat. And for you, a question that I don't know the answer to, or I'm not sure if you know, if we have some license packs, for example, like a starter pack, the question was, for example, package 1, which may include 2 named user license, 1 basic orchestrator, blah, blah. Do you know if we have some commercial packs, like a starter pack? I'm not sure.
There are some starter packs, but again, that's a discussion for sales. So we have some starter packs for enterprises. We, trying to definitely help them scale and, reap the benefits as soon as possible. But there's various starter packs based on the needs.
Yeah, that's why, as Andy mentioned at the beginning, we don't have many details on the sales side.
As you can
hi,
mute
Vikas.
yourself. Yeah.
Yeah, I think Vikas, I think you were unmuting, and please go ahead.
Yeah, hi. It was specifically about enterprise license, and if we want to convince the IT security team, is there any guidelines or practices where we take it that moving it to the cloud, specifically this whole orchestrator thing, will be helpful? So I'm in an organization which has a merger. They both were having UiPath, and we are trying to put it together. We are using an old version, 2018 version. Now there is a concept where we are trying to think over, we just drop one of the server license and we just go with it. But parallelly, I'm trying to push why we need IT and all those things to be involved. So is there any best practice or paperwork which you can share so that I can take it to the security teams, which made my life easier?
Yeah, go ahead, Vio.
For the security team, I know we have some white papers on the website. I'm gonna try to find the link. Resources, white papers.
Well, you can send me that later, and I will post it in the event along with the recording and presentation.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. Great.
Okay, perfect.
Hi, Yogi. Hi, Yogesh here.
Yeah, Yogesh.
Yeah, could you please explain a little more about multi-users add-on? What exactly it is, why it is required?
So the multi-user add-on, like we were mentioning, it's we are not we're not trying to. Our goal is to actually have a license for every user. That's our goal, because we think everybody should have access to the tools and should not be queuing up for licenses. On the other hand, we are aware that in certain cases with contact centers, with any business where people work in shifts, that's not an optimal scenario. So for that, we came up with a multi-user option, where actually on the same license, actually 3 users can use it. Obviously not at the same time, but assuming I don't know, let's just say it was 3 shifts a day, the same user can continue to use that license. Does that give more clarity?
Yeah, it's pretty clear. So I just want to know that it is an replacement of attended concurrent license.
It is pretty much for the use case of as we did actually retire the concurrent licenses, correct? We came up with a multi-user, so it's both on the studio concurrent or the attended concurrent. Yeah, in cases where it's not feasible, although we are recommending everybody name to the name user, they can leverage this. Yeah. Thank you for the question.
Thank you.
Hi, Kuba here. I would like to continue the subject of multi-user add-on. Is it sufficient to buy just one add-on and it works for every type of license which has multi-user option? Or do you have to purchase it several times?
No, Jakub, it's a great question. Thank you for that. So no, the multi-user add-on is a one-time. It's an annual license like all of them, but it's a one-time. So you buy it once per ship to entity. So it's if there's maybe a partner and they will buy. No, it's per one customer. They buy one, and then they can use all of our range of products with a multi-user extension.
Okay, thank you.
Sure. Please.
Yeah, hi guys. I have one question. In my firm, we have in the production I'm talking about, we have 600 unattended licenses and 400 with the attended port licenses. So my question is, we always come across with the terms of concurrent licenses or runtime licenses. So are they the similar one which you refer for the user and the multi-user?
Can you try? I'm not sure I understand the question, Pooja. So, you had. Let me try to rephrase it and see. So you in your enterprise you have 600 unattended licenses, and you have 400 attended robots, right?
Yes, in the production environment, right?
Yeah.
So we never talk about the user licenses to those bots or the multi-user. Like the infrastructure team always talks in terms of concurrent licenses or the runtime licenses. So I want to know, is all the 4 words are the similar one? Like for one thing only we are using 2 words. User is the same, multi-user is the same as your concurrent license? This is my question.
No. Okay, it's a good. Okay, and I understand. So no, Pooja. Like I mentioned, so we retired the concurrent licenses actually this spring. Now all the customers that already had them, which is most likely the case of your employer, they still have them, and they will be transitioning to the named user model or multi-user depending on the need, and once those are up for renewal. But we're not forcing anybody. We are upholding and sticking to the terms and to every contract. We're honoring all the contracts that are in active action. Does that clarify?
Yes. Thank you.
Thank you though for the question, because if you've already dealt with our licensing, yeah, that's the change that we did this year.
I have one more question regarding the standard orchestrator, or maybe the basic orchestrator. you mentioned that you can have 5, for example, unattended robots, and they will work with basic orchestrator license, right? And does this number 5 include the number of studio licenses, or is it separate? I mean, can you have 5 studio licenses and additional 5 unattended robots, or are they combined?
No, it's additional. So it's 5 unattended robots, and it's 5 either RPA developer licenses or Action Center or attended user licenses, or a combination of that. Okay. If you go, I don't have exactly the exact license, but it is 5 separate. There's 2 different. So total is 10, if you would, to make it simple.
Yeah, you can go to licensing.uipath.com and find it's in the first page under the commercial licenses for management, and it explains the orchestrator basic structure, let's say, what it has under it.
Okay, thank you very much.
Hi team, Nidhi this side. So I just have a quick question on the orchestrator cloud. So I've been exploring cloud orchestrator for a while, and I realized that in the modern folders, we can only use attended robot, right? So is this such kind of limitation with the modern folders that you only have to use the attended robots and not the attended one? Or if there's a limitation?
The unattended?
Yes, I mean, I cannot use unattended robots inside the modern folders of Cloud Orchestrator.
Yes, that's true. You weren't able, you will be able. That's a technical limitation, so it's not a commercial one. And as you've seen, and many of you asked, why is attended under users and not under robots? This is more like a naming confusion, let's say, because the attended was a per user, had a per user license model from the beginning. And if you remember, in classic folders for attended, you would have just to specify the username, no password required, and that would be all. So the username would be that user. The unattended robot has a machine license model or device, whatever you want to call it. By the way, we didn't invent these. These are on the market, user machine, things like this. And with Orchestrator in modern folders, when the Orchestrator team created this feature with modern folders, they called it as to decouple the robot's dependency to Orchestrator. As you remember, with machine key and that combination to connect the robot to Orchestrator, it was kind of hard for a new user, and they wanted to simplify this and also add some granularity. And they first did it for attended because it was easier technically, and released these modern folders with attended because you only add the users and mark them with a license attended. But for unattended, it will also be coming in the next release.
Okay, so we'll be seeing in the next release, okay.
Yeah. You can read in the release notes. So yeah, this was announced when they released attended with modern folders. They announced that they are working, and now the work is pretty much done.
Thank you so much. Yeah. Thanks.
Welcome.
I think, yeah, go ahead, Manisha.
Hi, hello, I'm referring around like that in the site of that licensing.uipath.com, that in that guidelines, you are mentioning that attended robots cannot be used as the unattended robots. So that means I want to know about that. What is the purpose of it, and what is you are referring that? What is the meaning of it? Actually,
the meaning is that in our older version, very old version, I think before 18.4 version, we also supported the task scheduler from Windows. You know, there is a task scheduler. And we supported meant that we also tested, and we also did improvements for the robots, the attended ones, to work with task scheduler. And that was before. We removed this because we improved our scheduling option in Orchestrator for unattended, but for attended, being a per user, so let's say working alongside with the user, there is no point on scheduling it if a user has to, it needs user intervention to run a process or based on the user's needs. And this is why I'm not sure if you are using Orchestrator or not, but this is why you cannot schedule or start a job in Orchestrator on an attended robot anymore. I don't remember since when, but I think 18.4, it's that, I think so.
Yeah, actually that the scenario is like this because of once you are coming with the attended robots, so in that case attended robots, even we can, the developer can use as that attended robot definition make as yes, it's like kind of that human interaction should be needed, but
Yeah.
in the actions of the developer skills and kind of the requirements and kind of the whatever that they have made, we can still make the robot like even if we need to run the one process, that mean like that entirely, that is running entirely the one process, that means it's never ending process, so that we can use the attended robot. But I want to know that that mean the process will be running until the end, that mean without that mean kind of
Yes.
without
Yes,
stopping.
I know about the use case you're mentioning, and I'm not sure if you tried the community edition, because I don't think with the latest, but with the previous community release. So with the new UiPath Assistant, as you've seen, the robot tray is slightly different, and it has some new, let's say, skin and some new functionalities. The team is also working for the assistant to be able to, let's say, handle these use cases and not orchestrator per se. So yeah, this use case is covered by our team. I'm not sure about what features are released yet, but I think I'm sure that in community some reminders are released already, and this is the first step, let's say, to cover that use case that you are mentioning.
Yeah, actually that the thing is that I just need to know about that using the cup like kind of using the attended robot like a looping with that same function without, that mean I'm not talking about the running multiple process in the same attended but assume that one process running until that without ending, there is that a violation using that attended robot as unattended robot. That is what my last questions like that.
But okay, just if I may ask, so when you're talking about an attended robot, so it's an automation that doesn't need your the human input?
Yeah, that's it.
There's nothing about whether the input is needed or not between attended and unattended. The attended, and the main difference is who triggers it. So it has to be triggered by the user. It has to, the automation runs on that particular machine. That user decides when to stop it. So it's there. Whereas the unattended is controlled by the orchestrator. Yes, it can ask for input for the user or not. So what we did with the Action Center actually is we enabled the long running workflows where actually users, like business users, can provide input or validation or decisions to an unattended automation. But there's no necessarily correlation on the whether it requires human input or not is not the difference between attended or unattended robots.
Got it. Thanks.
Sure.
Yeah, Yogesh, you have any other question? You have raised the hand.
Yeah, I have one more question. So like, I don't know it is the right form or not. If it is not right form, just ignore the question. So I have one Abbey UiPath distributed license. So can I install like an standalone license? So I'm not getting a proper documentation for distributed license installation. So I'm planning to install. Yeah.
Do you want to, let's say, license Abby separately?
No, currently I have Abby distributed license, Abby Flexi Capture distributed license. Okay, so I just want to use it as an Abby standalone. Is that possible or not?
I don't think so. So in 20.4, our previous enterprise release, we have, let's say, enabled for an orchestrator license to also have Abby Flexi Capture pages and to be able to see the consumption there in orchestrator. But for standalone, I honestly don't know.
Sure, sure, no problem. Thank you.
So when you mean standalone, you mean without actually using the UiPath platform, just the standalone product?
Yes, exactly.
I don't know. I know
No,
we
no,
have an OEM agreement with Abby, actually a reseller, but I don't know whether it would have. I doubt it.
no, no,
But
not
maybe.
like that. No, like we'll be building a template using an Abby Studio.
Yeah.
So like later, like we'll be extracting, like we'll be pass that PDF or documents through UiPath itself. So my question here is, we have a distributed license now. So like I'm not getting a proper documentation for that, how to install it to user machines or users a desktop or a server machine. So what I'm planning is like installing a standalone is pretty simple. Abby standalone licensing.
Yeah.
So I'm planning to planning to use the same distributed license for standalone. So is that works or not?
Yeah.
That's what my
Hi,
confusion.
Ajay here. Can I answer this question?
Yes, yes, Ajay.
Yeah. So you need a separate standalone, SDK and runtime for this. You cannot use a distributed license for a standalone feature.
Okay. 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 Thank you, Ajay. Thank you.
One more point to note in this is you can use the distributed license, and you'll find some notes on the Abby website also how to connect to UiPath. Other thing is you can also reach out to their support team, so they should be able to help.
Sure, sure. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys. Thank you, team.
Yeah. Any other question, guys?
Hi. Another second question from me. Since we have launched recently this testing and specifically test manager, how you see it's been adopted and how customer is taking and what are the use cases has been picked up in testing field? Because that's a totally separate business, separate sector, which I feel.
Hi, Vikas. Personally, I know about the product, but we have our test team that manages that. So I don't have that information right now, unfortunately. I don't know, Vio, if you have more insights, but I don't know about actually the learnings and how it's being deployed. I know there's a lot of interest, and I know a lot of customers are signing up for it, but more detail I don't know.
Yeah, I don't have also exact numbers. I know mostly mobile testing. It's been asked by other customers. So yeah, it's a very different field, but it can be, let's say, combined with RPA. But this is what I know. I don't have the exact
what I also heard is that we have customers that actually just sign up for this. They actually don't have RPA. They just sign up for our test platform and they use it independently.
So because we will again have another meetup on the testing, probably SAP automation or something. Probably that team can answer your question.
Thank you.
Hey, hi, Santosh here. I have one question. This is regarding the cloud orchestrator offering. So if I take the Action Center license, so generally for this, all the use cases which need the human intervention like approval process, with the Action Center, we use the storage bucket to store the invoices and the documents. So the approver can open the document and he can review and approve. So with this license, the storage bucket space is available freely, or is there any constraint on the space available for the storage bucket?
So the question is whether the storage used for actions for the processes and for the files. Okay, I don't know off the bat, but I don't know that Orchestrator provides the storage. So I'm not sure. I'm not sure. I understand the question. Maybe can you try to just give a little bit more insights or like describe it more? Maybe Vio, you understand it better, but
not really.
so Santosh, can you just explain? So the use case, yeah. Sorry.
Yeah, give an example.
Yeah.
See, for example, suppose you have an invoice process. Okay. Now, invoice process, you need a one approval step where you create a task in the orchestrator. Okay. So when you create a task, you can open the form in the task. Okay. And on the form, you have information about the invoices. And again, you can see the invoice also, invoice PDF or the invoice document. And the approver or manager can see the information and he can take the action whether the approver review. But that invoice basically it basically stores into the storage bucket.
Okay. But it's a temporary storage. Yeah, it's just right during the process.
Yeah, and again on the form also, suppose I want to create or show a company logo. So that images I can store into the storage bucket. So my question is there any limitation on the space of the storage bucket? Or any link with the license?
Not that I know of. So it's the cloud orchestrator is supposed to function just like a regular orchestrator. It's in the cloud. It's managed by us. The value of it is actually there's no more infrastructure costs for the customer. Now, whether there are certain limits for some of the use cases, like I know maybe on computer vision of bandwidths or stuff like that, but not that I know of on the use case you mentioned. So I don't know of any.
No. There are very few limits. For example, like on queue items, an item cannot have more than I think 100 mega.
Yeah.
But it's a lot anyways, or 500, I don't know, it's a lot. And that's because, and I think this is only a limit for community.
Okay.
And not for enterprise. So this is for our servers, let's say, to work properly and for us to avoid some performance issues, but there are regular limits. No, none for Action Center as far as I know.
And yeah, there's no different pricing for like larger volumes or something. No, it's not a factor in our pricing.
Okay, thank you. Thanks a lot.
So do we have any other questions? I guess before I think I'm looking at the Q&A, the chat. So I haven't seen anything that's not addressed. If there's somebody whose questions has not been addressed, please let us know. So unmute yourself and ask the question. I'm also trying to look.
Your slides were very good. Sorry, your slides were very good. Is it possible to take a copy of that to take it for internal presentations?
For internal presentations, you mean within the company? So
yeah, within the company, we are in a whole restructuring, reshaping, mergers. So
I would engage with your whether you have your CSM or the partner you work with. They have materials. We will share some of these slides though. I'll just confirm exactly what is okay to share like this. But within the enterprise setting, for sure, you should have access to this already.
Yeah,
but okay.
Thank you.
But we will share some of the slides after the call with Vibor.
This would also be something we would be interested in.
All right.
Yeah. Any other question, guys? Please
Hi
feel free
everyone,
to ask.
Krishna
Yeah,
here.
go ahead. Yeah, Krishna.
So I've seen the classification of the developers. We have seen like RPA developers, RPA specialized developers, and the other fold of it. So what could be the working agreement, working kind of difference between those? Is that only the stack of the UiPath modules has been increased in the respective modules, or is there any different portion of it?
I'm sorry, Krishna. I didn't. Can you repeat the question? For a second, I didn't hear that.
No worries. So there's a one large slide which starts from business users to like test suite automation slide,
Yeah,
right? So in
yeah,
that,
the one with all of
right. So in that there is a portion I've seen like in CY we have CY developers and specialized CY developers, and there is one more fold if I remember correctly. So what exactly the difference between those is that just that the UiPath modules additional stack has been added to that section, or is there any technical difference between the offerings?
So let me just, so you're talking the difference between the process mining developer and the test developer on the specialized developer or on the RPA developer, sorry?
Yeah, so in RPA developer, so there are normal developer and specialized developer kind of segments,
Yeah,
right?
well, no, it's the RPA developer, there's two. There's the RPA developer and the RPA developer pro. So that's the difference between the two. The specialized developers, those are the ones that actually have access to either the process mining or the tester capability, the test suite capabilities.
Okay, so does it mean if when the new licensing model kicks in, so we need to be aligned with these wordings when we want to procure the license, let's say RPA developer, RPA specialized developer, such that the relative products will be given access to those licenses?
So the license, the new licensing kicked in as of March 26th this year, and as of May 1st, we only sell for new customers. We only sell the new SKUs. For existing customers, on the other hand, as I've mentioned, we uphold the existing agreements. What we recommend is to move to the new ones, to the new ones because of the added value, right? So as opposed to before, where you just have an attended or a studio license, now you actually have the full RPA developer. So you have access whether to Action Center, to Task Capture. You also have access to even with a studio action license before, for example, you had access to an attended user, but it was limited to non-production use. Now we actually allow production use of that attended robot, for example. So there's a lot of value added into these bundles. So our recommendation is to move, whether it's the next time you go on an additional upsell, you buy something new, or where you actually have renewal to actually switch to the new model.
Got it. Thank you.
Sure. Have we addressed all the questions?
Yeah, I think so. Most of the questions have been addressed. Guys, if
Yeah,
you have
what
any
I
other
want to mention here, since we are at almost the end, is that you can still post questions regarding licensing. For me personally, I would expect more, let's say, technical combined with what Andy presented today to our forum. And if you create a topic with the licensing tag, I do it regularly. I go through the questions with licensing tag on forum. So please ask there.
Yeah, and do ask. Please ask there. Focus both on the there, but also on the please ask. So we really appreciate the feedback. So it's really important, and we continuously, and to the point earlier, we've grown our product range a lot. So we know that added complexity to the offering, as opposed to before we had studio, we had the robot and the orchestrator, right? We're doing everything we can, and we're learning as much as we can from our customers to make this as simple as possible. So that feedback is essential for us. So keep it coming, you know, tell us where you think maybe something needs simplification or clarity. We are always listening. Like Vio said, we're constantly monitoring every channel, every communication channel.
I just shared the link for the forum with the tag licensing, where you can post any question you have in the future.
Yep.
We have 15 minutes more, guys. So in case you have any question, feel free, because it's not very often we are going to have session on the licensing.
Is it possible to throw a question more about technical implementation and the experience I am having? Or it's just about licensing only? Because what has happened, I have some license in which runs a virtual machine, and the behavior between attended one and the virtual machine is slightly different. Did anyone has any experience like that?
What I'm thinking is it may be a difference between the resolution on your machine and virtual machine.
Resolution, it could not be, because it's a browser-based automation, and in the script, same script runs on the desktop, which is attended one, and the browser is getting maximized. So, is it something only the thing which is going in my mind? Because these virtual machines are locked when the automation happens, so can that cause something? Because the only difference.
I mean, what version do you have? Do you know on the attended?
Oh, we are using 2018.
18. Oh, it's hard. I don't really remember. Yeah, it may be an issue because I'm not sure when we did the changes, but yeah, for attended, the requirement is for the machine to be unlocked. But if you get an error, a more specific error, I think support.
No. There is no error. Basically, the functionality is throwing error, not the attended robot or unattended robot. So the robot is not throwing. Robot try to execute it, but same code, and it has worked. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't work. It's very strange.
That's why I was thinking of something like a display resolution or some elements that may be changing sometimes. Are you using dynamic selectors?
Yeah.
You've tried it all I can think of, but I'm not that technical. I'm not sure.
So Ajay here.
Sorry, that's why. Yeah, Ajay, continue, please.
So I think it can be related, maybe that's my point. It can be related to some, the performance of the application which you are, working upon. Maybe sometimes there is some lag. I hope you are using controls like element exist before taking any action on those controls. Yeah, I hope you're getting my point.
No, I got your point. All those checks find element exists and everything is been picked up. And the interesting thing is, initial for 3-4 weeks, I will say the process runs successfully and there was nothing, and suddenly start coming up, even though there is no upgrade of an application and all the things. So only the thing which I see is the virtual machine behavior.
So may I know, are you also using extensive logging to see where the issue is coming generally?
No.
So I would suggest
Well, yeah. When you say extensive logging, using logs to to review the steps, right?
Right, right. Uh-huh.
Yeah, I have used it, and actually because the screen is because this is running at the back end. I will say on the virtual machine, and we don't screen is capturing the data what is there on the screen, and the functionality has not. So basically, that particular iteration. So if you have 100 transactions, those iteration every time is just kicking off. So cycle happens, but the transaction doesn't complete as per the application required. But what happens? It just skips off. But if I take that and run it on attended, it just flows off and the transactions gets completed.
Sorry, because probably we can take that offline, with
Yeah.
Ajay. So because
Yeah,
we
yeah,
have
fine.
another question from Shishra. Yeah,
Yeah,
Shishra, go ahead.
so my question is with respect to the cross utilization of licenses. So one of our use cases, we have attended automation and also Pure Studio X and other stuff. So in attended automation, one of the challenge being brought by business is there are suppose a team working on APJ and AMS shift, and it's the same operation team but different user, but the same process they operate in two different time zone. We need to allocate today? What is happening? We are allocating two different licenses to them. Like APJ team member, it's attended automation. Their machine only they will configure, so it's running on their machine, and AMS one more license. But if you see the utilization of attended bot is not 24-hour, but only the hour what it runs, like 8 hour a day. So the question is coming back, like, can the same license of APJ team be reallocated to the AMS team so that using only one license they can operate and the entire process instead of consuming two licenses, because they have to now pay for two licenses, but ideally they are not using 24 hours, just 8 hours they're using.
Hi, Shira. So you're talking about attended licenses, right? Just to
correct, yeah.
So no, but the attended license, they're named users. So the idea is everybody should have it. What we want to avoid is to avoid overlapping and queuing for the license. That's exactly why we actually no longer support the concurrent, because we've had use cases. So for example, a use case like you're saying, you would have a finite number because obviously nobody would buy too many because they were also more expensive. And then you'd risk actually between the two different time zones to people to queue up on the licenses. So right now, our recommendation is no. They should be. There are two different users using them. Hence, they are two different licenses. So it's not about a 24-hour. That's the unattended license. That for a 24-hour usage. The attended licenses are per named user.
Okay, so meaning so per name user is attended license. I will get the benefit only the time I'm running. It's not like I'm completely getting the benefit of 24-hour by sharing this license key to other one, right?
Exactly, but they're very different licenses. They're very different commercial terms to it between attended and unattended, right? Because you cannot be an attended user and use it for 24 hours, right? The definition of attended has to be supervised, started by the user, monitored, and everything else. For that use case, you have the unattended licenses. So for the 24-hour, if you will, right? And yeah, fair enough. If you do have, for example, you have in 3 different geographies, users using it, 3 different users, you can, if you could use the multi-user, but I don't think we still recommend the named user to avoid any kind, because even then they could overlap timings, right? You don't have the exact 8 hours split between them.
Okay, assume a scenario like one user is running at one time zone, right? For example, APJ only one user, AMS one user, they will never overlap. In that scenario, is there a possibility to achieve this situation with one license?
Then you would the only option that we have for that would be the multi-user, right? Where 3 people can use the same license but not concurrently, right? So they will like sequentially one user now, assuming. But for the 2 use cases, it doesn't make sense, because even with concurrent, it didn't make sense for just 2 people on the same license. They are more expensive. So named user is recommendation to go ahead. It's simpler. It allows everybody all the tools and they need to continue to do their automation.
Can someone paste the multi-user license to the topic you said? There is a way by using multi-user. Do we have some reference how to achieve that?
I'm not sure that I understand the question.
No, you
Sorry.
did mention there is a way to achieve it through multi-user license. With the same license we can achieve by, if there is no
So
overlapping, right?
multi-user license, and I think Viola also mentioned this in the chat. Practically is a variant that we continue to have from our old concurrent licenses, with a limitation of 3 to 1, but it's only for particular use cases, right? So if you have 3 users or 10, it doesn't make economic sense because there's also an add-on. So you have to sort of get that add-on and then you can use it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, I got that.
But I would recommend there might be a use case. So I would recommend for that do engage with your sales rep, with your CSM or somebody on our commercial side, and they can help you find the best solution.
Yeah. Okay.
Sorry, Vio, you were saying something, and I.
No, I was saying that technically it works like concurrent licenses worked. It's just in terms of provisioning the pool of users that changed.
Yeah.
Sorry, Krishna here again. So I just want to get the words of node locked and node unlocked in the licensing terms. So is there any relation or replacement of those words in the new licensing model, or is there any kind of comparison over it?
That's a good. We didn't talk about. So we both on the for the studio and the attended robots, we discontinued both concurrent and node locked, and they're all being replaced by the named user.
Got it. Thanks. And it continues towards the previous question on how to best utilize the attended license. If I correctly understand, if you want to utilize 100% of unattended, so there is a concept of high density. So is there any similar way if the attended license is being obtained from the orchestrator to have a control for better utilization?
I'm not sure I understood. Can you just?
Okay, I'm just comparing the most correct utilization of the robots, whether it's attended or unattended. So in attended, I'm aware of the concept of high density, where on the single system you can have multiple robots running the different process with different accounts based upon the occupancy. So that satisfies the business deal of high utilization or product utilization. So it just continues on the previous question, like what Srihar asked, kind of thing. Is there any way, in the similar way, can we any method of utilizing the attended robots? Because in attended robots also, I think we can enable the license as a system on its own by allocating the license key, and the other way is like procuring the license from orchestrator. Is that correct?
Vio, on the technical side, I think you exactly know how the license is procured.
For the attended.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay, so for the attended user, from a technical point of view, you install the software and you, if you connect it to Orchestrator, it will get its license from Orchestrator just as before. But if you license it with a separate key, it will make, let's say, an activation request to our licensing server. And based on the Windows username, the activation will happen specifically for that username, and it will show, okay, you are activated. When you deactivate, it will remove the activation for that username, and then you can, for example, use the same key to activate on a different username in cases like somebody leaves the company that had that license, or some other cases like this.
Somebody changes departments or something, you want to reallocate it. But
This is when the initial username is no longer on that.
But at any time, that license needs to have a specific user attached to it. Like no, they have one, so it cannot be used without being attached to an actual user.
Yes, for one. It may, so there are cases for standalone, as we call them. So when you license unattended without orchestrator, when you license it with a key, it may happen that some customers buy 5 attended and they want them all on the same license key. This is only operational, and you may have 5 allowed activations on that key. And that means that you bought 5 attended users, and 5 different ones are allowed to use it, or it's based on customer request, or you may want these 5 on 5 different license keys. That's also possible, and it's kind of the same thing. But for now, we are using the Windows username as we did before, to, let's say, as an identifier of the user.
Thank you. I think it gives me explanation. Thanks much.
Yeah, for example, to give you, let's say, a counter example or a similar one, for our cloud licenses, as you could see, you sign up to cloud and you have a community license. You can then have trial or enterprise, whatever. And for that, the identifier is not the Windows username, but it's the email. It's the identifier of a user, let's say.
Great. I think we are on time now.
One last thing, maybe we were just to add, like, see, today, honestly, the license structure is little difficult in the orchestrator, how we manage. Is there any new structure or upcoming thing in the roadmap which will realign this licensing model, the way we allocate the license to user, no matter it is attended, unattended, or StudioX, which is upcoming? Is there anything in the roadmap, or no such things are in pipeline?
So to answer that, so we obviously we launched a new pricing structure this year, and we get feedback. We're constantly trying to simplify things, both in terms of actually how licensing happens and also the model. So there are things that we are working on. Now I can't tell you whether that particular concern will be addressed, but we will be announcing in the next release, both in 20.10 and probably 21.4, various changes. And hopefully some of them might address your concern about actually implementing and installing and everything.
Okay.
So we are constantly looking at the feedback.
Yeah, and I know it seems that it's maybe more complicated now, but trust us, we are really trying to simplify it with this. And we are trying to simplify how the platform works in terms of licensing. But it cannot be done overnight.
Okay, so one more request. Is there any possible to compare the previous licensing model, the current, so that it will be helpful for organizations to do kind of apple-to-apple comparison in terms of terminology? Because there is a lot of change in terminology, and underneath there is also change in the way that what means.
Yes, you can see in licensing.uipath.com. So when you access it right now, you will see the new pricing structure and the new names. But if you go down at the bottom of the page, you would see the archive of license models for previous versions. And you can see there the terminology and how they were called.
Yeah, and to add to that, Krishna, so I suppose this question comes as you're an existing customer and to see how it maps to what you have or with what's going to happen in the future. So for that, we've actually had a very thorough and extensive communication campaign, both with our partners and with our customers. So we reached out to them, with these changes. So probably in your organization, this has been already approached. So we've had months of weekly trainings with our partner, with our sales reps. So when they go to our customer, they always come. Not only do they present them, but they also show them the options they have in this context.
Okay, that's great. Thank you.
Thank you, Krishna.
I think we are on time now.
Okay.
So it's time to wrap up. Thank you, Andre. Thank you, Verola, for answering all the questions. And thank you, everyone. We really appreciate you being here. Please do check out other upcoming virtual session happening at community event page. And I have also shared the link where we will be posting the recording. And please don't forget to register for UiPath Developer Conference happening on 2nd and 3rd September. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Goodbye.